She doesn't need to know its true value. She wouldn't know what to do with it anyway. That's what my father said about me, his own daughter, just 3 hours after my husband's casket was lowered into the earth. I was still in my black dress, cemetery dirt clinging to my shoes. When I approached the front door of my parents' house that evening, every word drifted through the screen door. Their scheme, the forged documents, the doctor who'd never examined me once signing off on my sanity as casually as marking a golf scorecard. But they had no idea I was standing there, listening, and they had no clue what I would do next. Before I continue, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story truly resonates with you. Drop your location and the time where you are. I love knowing who's with me. My name is Patricia Sinclair. I'm 34 years old, and this is what happens when the people meant to shield you become the very ones you must guard against. Now let me take you back to a Tuesday morning in October, the day I buried my husband. A light rain fell during Daniel's funeral, not a torrent, just a persistent, fine drizzle that settled on everything and refused to be ignored. The church was modest, white clapboard, worn pews, a slightly tilted steeple on the outskirts of Braintree. Daniel would have approved. He never liked anything ostentatious. Around 40 people attended, his colleagues from the software company, neighbors from Elm Terrace, a handful of college friends who drove down from New Hampshire. Helen Marsh, my closest friend since 9th grade, sat beside me in the front pew, gripping my hand until her knuckles blanched. I kept glancing toward the rear of the church. 3 seats on the left, the ones I'd quietly reserved for my parents and my sister Megan, remained empty. No coats slung over the backs, no purses tucked below. I checked my phone beneath the hymnal. No missed calls, no messages. Helen leaned close. Want me to call them? I shook my head. They know what day it is. The pastor spoke warmly of Daniel, 38 years old, software engineer, quiet and dependable, the sort of man who repaired your porch light without a word of thanks needed. A hidden heart condition, undetected until too late, just 2 weeks from his first chest twinge to a simple pine box. We'd been married 8 years. He managed the bills, taxes, insurance. I took care of the rest, the groceries, the appointments, the 3 a.m. anxieties when his chest ached. He used to say, "Patty, I've got the numbers, you've got me." And that was our entire agreement. It was enough. After the burial, I lingered by the grave in the rain. 40 people had come to farewell my husband. Not one shared my maiden name. I still didn't understand why my family was absent. I convinced myself they were simply tied up. I even felt a pang of guilt for not reminding them. I had no idea they were at home, occupied with something far different. The call arrived the following morning. I was still on the couch in yesterday's clothes when the phone rang, a 617 number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Sinclair, this is Daniel Kessler. I was your husband's estate attorney." Estate attorney? I hadn't even known Daniel had one. "I'd like to meet with you today if possible. There are documents needing your attention." I drove to a brownstone office near Copley Square, brass nameplate, tall windows, the kind of place Daniel would have passed without a second glance, indifferent to appearances. Kessler was early 50s, graying at the temples, glasses on a chain. He offered water and came directly to the point. "Your husband executed a will 18 months ago. He named you sole beneficiary." He opened a folder and slid 3 property summaries across the desk. 3 rental apartments in Greater Boston, Dorchester, Somerville, Cambridge, combined market value around $2.4 million, plus a residential home on the Cape Cod shore valued at roughly $1.5 million. I read the figures twice, then a third time. Daniel owned them all outright, no mortgages. The rentals produced reliable income. Everything passed to me. I sat stunned, struggling to align the man who drove a 10-year-old Subaru with someone who quietly held nearly $4 million in real estate. Kessler watched me briefly, then drew a business card from his pocket and set it atop the folder. Mrs. Sinclair, your husband planned this with great care. He wanted you secure. He paused. If anyone at all, pressures you regarding these assets, call me before you sign anything. It struck me as an odd warning. I thanked him, tucked the card into my coat pocket, and left feeling as though Daniel was still watching over me from somewhere beyond sight. But I hadn't yet grasped why Kessler had been so deliberate. That understanding arrived the same evening. I drove to my parents' house in Quincy, still wearing the same black coat, eyes still swollen. I wanted to share news of the will. I wanted to sit at the familiar kitchen table and hear my mother murmur something gentle like, "It's going to be all right, sweetheart." The porch light glowed. I parked behind my father's truck and climbed the steps. The screen door was latched, but the inner door stood slightly ajar, the way Mother always left it when the kitchen grew warm from cooking. I reached for the handle, then I heard my name. Patricia doesn't need to know the details yet. My father's voice, low, authoritative, the tone he used when steering a discussion he refused to let derail. I froze, hand an inch from the screen. Kessler called this afternoon. The son-in-law left her apartments, 3 of them, and a house on the Cape. Silence fell. Then Megan, sharp and swift, "How much?" "Close to 4 million. A deeper quiet fell. I could hear the mantel clock ticking through the door. Megan again. "She can't handle that money. She doesn't even know how to pay an electric bill." My father gave a low grunt, the sound of agreement. I stood motionless on the porch, hand still raised. The drizzle had ended hours earlier, yet I trembled as if it hadn't. Inside that house sat the only 3 family members I had left, treating my life like an entry on a balance sheet. But the next words, my mother's, cut deepest. Her voice slipped through the screen like a velvet-covered knife. "Daniel dying is the best thing that's happened to this family. Now we finally have a way out." Let that sentence linger the way it did for me. My husband, the man who brought my mother flowers each birthday, who cleaned my father's gutters every spring without being asked, had been gone 16 days, and my mother called his death the best thing. My knees nearly gave way, but I held steady. I stayed silent. My father continued seamlessly. "I spoke to Feldman today. He'll sign the certificate. Grief disorder, psychological trauma, inability to manage financial affairs. We file for guardianship. Megan will be named guardian. I already contacted a real estate agent in Barnstable about the Cape House." That was Megan, casual as if she were ordering takeout. My mother again. "Make sure you hide the paperwork. If Patricia sees any of it, the whole plan unravels." I stood frozen on that porch for another minute, perhaps 2. My ears rang, my chest felt filled with wet cement. Then, without forethought, I drew out my phone, opened the voice recorder, and tapped the red button. I held it close to the narrow gap in the door and let it capture everything. They continued. Details, deadlines, who to contact, how to keep me oblivious. After 2 more minutes, I pressed stop. I turned, descended the steps, slipped into my car, and drove off. I didn't knock, I didn't enter, I didn't weep. For 30 minutes, I drove in utter silence. No radio, no tears, just one question repeating endlessly. How long had they looked at me and seen only a bank account instead of their daughter? Later, I sat at the kitchen table in the apartment Daniel and I had shared for 8 years. His coffee mug rested in the drying rack. Kessler's business card lay beside my phone, the recording still on it. At 11 that night, I called Helen. She answered on the second ring. She always does when it's me. "Patty, what's wrong?" I told her everything. The vacant seats at the funeral, Kessler's office, the porch conversation, every word that had sliced through the screen door. Helen didn't interrupt, didn't gasp, didn't swear. She simply listened the way only the best listeners do, gathering every loose thread. When I finished, her voice was tempered steel. "Patty, hear me clearly. Do not call your parents. Do not call Megan. Tomorrow morning, first thing, phone Kessler, then call me. I know exactly what to do. Helen is a paralegal at a downtown Boston firm specializing in real estate and estate law. 11 years immersed in probate, guardianships, and property conflicts. She identified my family scheme before I even had the language for it. What they're planning, using a doctor to declare you incapacitated without an exam, then petitioning for guardianship to seize control of your assets, that isn't family friction, Patty. It's felony forgery and fraud. We treat it as such. I exhaled, perhaps for the first time in hours. I know someone at the Norfolk County DA's office, Detective Ray Campos. He specializes in financial exploitation of vulnerable adults. If we need him, and I believe we will, I'll make the introduction. I stared across the table at Daniel's coffee mug. He used to tell me I was stronger than I realized. I hadn't believed him then. Now I was beginning to do. My mother rang the next morning at 9:15. Her tone was warm, practiced, perfectly modulated. "Sweetie, I've been thinking of you all night. Why didn't you stop by yesterday? We waited for you." They waited for me. I nearly laughed aloud. "I was exhausted, Mom. Maybe another time." "How about Sunday dinner? The whole family. Megan wants to see you. Your father's been so worried, sick with worry." Worried, sick. I kept my voice level. Helen had rehearsed me. Act ordinary, give nothing away. Buy time. "Sure, Mom, Sunday works." "Good. We love you, sweetheart. You shouldn't be facing this alone." I hung up and immediately dialed Kessler. He picked up on the first ring as though anticipating the call. "Mr. Kessler, my father reached out to you yesterday about my husband's estate. What exactly did he want to know?" A brief pause. "He inquired about the total value. He asked if you were the sole beneficiary, and he posed a hypothetical. What would happen if you were declared legally incapacitated?" My stomach lurched. "Mrs. Sinclair, I disclosed nothing beyond public record, but his questions troubled me. That's precisely why I gave you my card." Daniel's attorney had foreseen it before I had. Kessler's tone sharpened. "If your father files for guardianship and you fail to contest promptly, a judge could issue a temporary order in as little as 14 days. You must move first. I'm filing a preemptive objection today." He gave me one additional name, Dr. Rebecca Winters, board-certified psychiatrist, independent, 20 years in practice. Schedule an evaluation with her this week. A genuine psychiatric report affirming your full capacity will dismantle any claim built on a fraudulent certificate. I noted the number and called before noon. The earliest slot was Thursday. What I didn't yet know, what Helen would uncover that evening through a contact at Feldman's clinic, was that my father had already visited Dr. Nathan Feldman that same afternoon. Same city, same day, entirely different outcome. Feldman, a family physician rather than a psychiatrist, had signed a certificate stating that Patricia Harper Sinclair suffered from severe grief disorder with pronounced inability to manage personal and financial matters. He had never met me, never booked an appointment, never once met my gaze. Most critically, on the line for date of patient examination, he left it blank, because no examination had occurred. Only a signature and a favor among golf acquaintances. Sunday evening, I returned to the same porch where I had overheard their plot 5 days ago. This time I knocked. My father opened the door wearing a smile I'd never seen. Too broad, too bright. He pulled out my chair at the dinner table. He poured my water. Gerald Harper had never poured anyone's water in 62 years. My mother had prepared chicken piccata, my favorite from age 12. The house carried the scent of lemon and butter. Megan hugged me in the hallway. Her perfume was costly, her credit card debt even more so. We sat. We ate. My father guided the conversation with the precision of a man threading a needle, cautious, calculated, scanning every angle. "So, sweetheart, have you started sorting through Daniel's things? Do you have any sense yet of what he left behind?" I chewed deliberately. "The lawyer is still handling most of it. I don't fully understand everything yet." A glance flickered between my parents, swift, nearly imperceptible. I caught it. Gerald leaned in. "Finances can be overwhelming, sweetheart. Let your dad take care of the lawyer details. You've got enough on your plate already." Donna nodded in agreement. "He's right, honey. You need to concentrate on healing." Megan said nothing. She simply stared at her phone. Halfway through the meal, I excused myself to use the bathroom. On my return, I passed my father's home office. The door stood slightly ajar. On the desk, half concealed beneath a newspaper, lay a manila envelope bearing the Norfolk County Court seal. I slipped out my phone and snapped a photo. 2 seconds. Then I returned to the table and finished my chicken. Sitting there, watching 3 people I had known my entire life play the part of a devoted family, one thought kept circling. How many previous dinners had been performances too? How many times had I occupied this very chair and missed every signal? Have you ever looked back at a family moment and realized nothing was as it seemed? I'd love to hear. Share in the comments. I don't believe I'm alone in this. I drove home and enlarged the photo. The envelope's return address, Norfolk Probate and Family Court. Across the front, the clear stamp read, "Petition for Guardianship." They had already filed. Monday morning, before the coffee finished brewing, I called Kessler. "They filed. I saw the envelope last night. Norfolk Probate Court." He was silent for 3 seconds. I heard keyboard strokes. "I'm looking at it now. Gerald Harper, petitioner. Megan Harper, proposed guardian. Attached exhibit, a medical certificate signed by Dr. Nathan Feldman, stating you lack the mental capacity to manage your person and estate." Hearing those words rendered in formal legal prose, typed into a court database, assigned a case number, made it starkly real, far beyond the overheard porch conversation. This was no longer private family scheming. This was an official court filing. "The preliminary hearing is scheduled 14 days from the filing date," Kessler continued. "That gives us until October 29th. If we don't respond in time, a judge could grant a temporary guardianship order. Megan would gain legal control over your finances within the hour." 14 days. That slender interval separated me from losing everything Daniel had carefully built. "I'm filing our objection this morning," Kessler said. "Dr. Winter's report will serve as the primary exhibit. That document alone should give the judge serious pause." I called Helen next. "Good," she replied. "Kessler manages the civil side, but there's a criminal dimension too, and that's where Campos enters. I spoke with him yesterday. He wants the recording and Feldman's certificate." "How do we obtain it?" "It's already filed with the court. Campos can request a certified copy through proper channels. He expects it within a week." A week? The 14-day clock was already running, and we needed 7 days simply to verify what I already knew, that Feldman had signed a declaration concerning a patient he had never examined. 14 days. I could feel each one passing. On Wednesday, day 3 of the 14, a woman from Harbor View Property Group, the firm managing Daniel's Dorchester apartment, called me. Her tone was measured, rehearsed. "Mrs. Sinclair, I'm contacting you because we received a request yesterday from a woman claiming to be your legal guardian. She instructed us to redirect all rental payments to a different bank account." I gripped the counter edge. "What name did she give?" "Megan Harper. She provided a case number from Norfolk Probate Court and stated the guardianship was already active." It wasn't. The hearing had not occurred. No judge had approved anything. Yet my sister had already contacted a property manager, asserted authority she did not possess, and attempted to divert my income into her control. I thanked the woman, asked her to take no action until my attorney contacted her, and she agreed. I phoned Kessler immediately. Within the hour, he drafted and sent a cease and desist letter to Harborview, while also notifying Campos of the incident. "This is significant," Kessler said. "She falsely presented herself as a court-appointed guardian to a financial institution. That isn't merely premature, it constitutes identity fraud." Helen texted that evening, "Megan just handed us another felony on a silver platter." That night, my mother called again, warm, affectionate, impeccably timed. "Honey, I heard you've been difficult about the apartment matter. Why are you making this so complicated? We're only trying to help." Difficult. In the past 2 weeks, I'd been labeled incapable, unstable. Now, difficult. I kept my tone neutral. "I'm not being difficult, Mom. I simply want to understand everything before deciding." A slight crack appeared in her composure. "Well, don't take too long." She ended the call first. The following afternoon, Gerald appeared at my apartment unannounced. A knock, then there he stood, holding 2 coffees and a bakery bag from Hancock Street. "Thought I'd check on my girl," he said, stepping inside before I could respond. He sat at the kitchen table, Daniel's table, and chatted idly for 10 precise minutes. The weather, the neighbor's dog, a Red Sox trade he didn't truly follow. Then he reached into his jacket and produced a slim stack of papers. "Listen, sweetheart, I had a lawyer prepare these. It's just a temporary power of attorney. It lets me manage the real estate details for you. Property taxes coming due, insurance renewals, things you shouldn't have to handle right now." He slid the documents across the table, a blue pen resting on top. I glanced at the heading, Durable General Power of Attorney. Not limited, not temporary, general. It would grant Gerald unrestricted control over every financial decision in my life. "Dad, I need to read this first. Give me a few days." His jaw clenched. "Parsi, timing is important here. Bills, deadlines." Daniel always told me to read before I sign. I think I should respect that. He couldn't counter a dead man's counsel, not allowed. He left the papers on the table and departed without finishing his coffee. I photographed every page and forwarded them to Kessler. His response arrived within the hour. "Do not sign. This is an unrestricted general POA. If you execute it, your father could liquidate every property by tomorrow morning. Also, the drafting attorney, Robert Voss, is a former business associate of your father's. This was orchestrated." The uncapped blue pen still lay atop the stack, ink ready for the gravest mistake of my life. I capped it and tucked it into a drawer. Helen arrived Friday evening with her laptop and a yellow legal pad dense with notes. "Sit," she said. "I dug through every public record." "Your sister has been spending money she doesn't have for years," Helen said. "And your mother co-signed on the Quincy house. If Gerald loses it, Donna loses everything too." I stared at the figures. Nearly $600,000 in combined debt. My family was sinking, and Daniel's estate was worth almost $4 million. The arithmetic was brutally simple. I was their only lifeline. Helen closed the laptop and met my eyes. "Patty, they're not doing this because they genuinely believe you can't handle money. They're doing it because they're desperate. You're the only way out they have left." I sat motionless for a long while, gazing at the table. Daniel's table, where he once laid out his spreadsheets and, with quiet precision, constructed something meant to endure beyond him. He had never mentioned their debts. He had never mentioned many things, but he had ensured every asset belonged solely to me. Now I understood the reason. The text messages began arriving on Saturday, day 6. First from Angela, a college friend. "Hey, Patty, Megan called yesterday. She says you haven't been eating, you're not leaving the house, you're refusing help from everyone. She sounded genuinely worried. Are you okay?" Then from my Aunt Carol. "Sweetheart, your mother says you're really struggling. I'd love to come visit. Please let us help." Then from a second cousin in Connecticut I barely knew. "Praying for you, Patricia. Your family loves you so much." One by one, Megan was constructing a narrative, not to me, but around me, carefully planting the same story with every person she could reach. Patricia is unraveling. Patricia can't cope. Patricia needs intervention. By the time the court date arrived, they would all recall hearing the identical concern. I wanted to phone every single one of them. I wanted to shout, "I'm fine. I'm standing in my kitchen boiling pasta. I went for a run this morning." Helen stopped me. If you start calling people to defend yourself, it will look exactly like what Megan described, someone frantic and spiraling. Let your actions speak. Don't let panic speak for you. I set the phone down. It was the hardest thing I had done all week. Then Lisa Parker, my closest friend from college, called directly. "Patty, I didn't believe a single word of it, but you should know something." She paused. "Megan also asked if I had your bank account number. She said she needed it to help manage your bills." I closed my eyes. She wasn't merely attacking my reputation. She wanted access to my accounts, my contacts, my credibility. Megan was methodically dismantling every piece of my life under my control so that when the judge looked at me, all he would see was a woman stripped bare. But Lisa gave her nothing, and that small refusal mattered more than Megan would ever grasp. Day 8. Helen drove me to Norfolk County District Attorney's satellite office in Canton. Detective Ray Campos met us in a plain conference room. Metal table, no windows, no decorations. He was perhaps 45, broad-shouldered, composed, the sort of man who asks questions with the calm precision of a surgeon's scalpel. "Mrs. Sinclair, walk me through it from the start." I recounted everything. The funeral, the porch, the recording, Feldman, the power of attorney, Megan's call to Harborview. He took notes without lifting his gaze. When I finished, he said, "Play the recording." I placed my phone on the table and pressed play. My father's voice filled the space, then my mother's, then Megan's. Campos listened motionless. When it ended, he capped his pen and looked directly at me. "The recording gives us reasonable grounds to open an investigation, but the linchpin is Feldman's certificate. If I can prove he signed it without examining you, that's forgery. Submitting it to a court elevates it to fraud upon the tribunal." "How do we obtain it?" I asked. "It's an exhibit attached to the guardianship petition. I've already requested a certified copy through the court clerk. Expect it in 5 to 7 days. Helen leaned forward. "And Megan impersonating a guardian to redirect rental income?" "Identity fraud," Campos confirmed. "A separate charge. We're documenting it." He met my eyes. "Mrs. Sinclair, I've seen families commit awful acts for money, but forging medical documents to rob someone of their legal autonomy? That isn't family conflict. That's crime, and I will treat it as such." He stood. "In the meantime, do not confront them. Do not alter your routine. Let them think their plan is unfolding smoothly." I nodded. We shook hands. His grip was solid, steady, like an unspoken commitment. 5 to 7 days. The clock never paused. Day 10. My mother invited me to lunch, just the two of us, a seafood restaurant in Hull, overlooking the harbor. We used to go there when I was small, back when life felt simpler, or when I believed it was. She looked weary, noticeably thinner. When she hugged me at the entrance, she clung a moment too long. We ordered. She spoke of the weather, the new neighbors, a recipe she'd saved from a magazine, safe, ordinary topics. Then the tears arrived. "I'm so sorry I wasn't at the funeral," she said, voice fracturing. "I was afraid. I saw you in so much pain, and I didn't know what to say." I froze. I'm a terrible mother. Her tears were genuine. "Once he's in custody, I expect him to cooperate. Doctors typically do when their license hangs in the balance. When he speaks, he'll identify who requested the signature. That will link us directly to your father, your mother, and your sister." I rose and walked to the window. Outside, the street lay still. A school bus rolled past. "Detective Campos, when you visit my parents' house, I want to be present." A long pause followed. "Are you certain?" "I need to witness their expressions, and they need to witness mine." He consented. Sunday morning, 10 a.m., at the Harper residence in Quincy. 2 more days. I already knew my attire, the same black coat I had worn to Daniel's funeral, not for mourning this time, for concluding a chapter. Day 13. Gerald phoned that evening. The pretense had vanished. No sweetheart, no honey, just Patricia. "Patricia, I don't know who's been poisoning your mind, but this childish defiance ends now. You will sign the power of attorney." "No, I've already filed with the court. The hearing is Monday. You're about to humiliate this family before a judge." "I know you filed, Dad. My attorney informed me." Silence. I could hear his breathing. "So you retained counsel. You actually believe you understand what you're doing?" "I believe this conversation should conclude here. You've never managed anything in your life." His voice fractured, not with sorrow, but with rage. "Daniel handled everything for you. Bills, taxes, accounts, all of it. And now you imagine you can steward $4 million? You can't even—" I kept my tone even, unyielding as stone. "If you were truly trying to help me, you wouldn't require a doctor to declare me insane." Dead air. 3 full seconds. "That doctor examined you." "No, he didn't, and we both know it." He ended the call. I sat on the couch and stared at my hands. They trembled, not from fear, but from a deep, steady anger that lodged at the base of my spine and lingered for hours. Only later did I realize I had recorded the conversation. Not deliberately at first. I had pressed record instinctively when his name appeared on the screen, and then forgotten amid the effort to remain composed. But Massachusetts is a one-party consent state for participants in the call. The recording was lawful, and Gerald had just admitted, on tape, that he had filed the petition, that he knew about Feldman, that he anticipated my signature. Tomorrow was Sunday, one final night until resolution. Saturday evening, the apartment held a stillness that felt final. I sat on the bedroom closet floor, the space that still carried Daniel's scent most strongly, and opened the small, fireproof box he had kept on the top shelf. Inside lay our marriage certificate, his life insurance policy, the deed summaries Kessler had provided, and at the bottom, a sealed envelope bearing my name in his familiar handwriting. I had discovered it the week after his death, but left unopened. I hadn't been ready. Tonight, I was. The letter covered 1 page, written in blue ink. His script had always been compact, as though he aimed to compress more meaning into less space than life allowed. "Patty, if you're reading this, I'm sorry I couldn't stay longer, but I need you to hear something I should have voiced more often. You are stronger than you realize. You have always been strong. You simply never received permission to believe it. Not from your parents, not from anyone. So here it is in writing. I believe in you. I always did. Daniel." I folded the page and pressed it against my chest. Then the tears came, not restrained, not the measured grief of funerals, but raw, wrenching sobs that rose from a depth I hadn't known existed. Daniel had written that letter aware his heart was weakening, aware I would need it, aware precisely who might arrive for me once he was gone. I cried for 20 minutes. Then I washed my face, tucked the letter into my coat pocket, and called Helen. "Tomorrow I'm prepared. Campos will arrive at 10. Kessler will arrive at 10. I'll be there at 9:30. "Helen." "Yes?" "I thank you for believing me when almost no one else did." A brief silence. "That's what the good ones do, Patty. We show up." I set the alarm for 6 a.m. I intended to reach my parents' house first, to be the one who knocked. Saturday morning, October 28th. Clear sky, no rain. Not this time. I pulled into the driveway at 8 a.m. The same cracked asphalt, the same basketball hoop from 1996, rusted at the rim. I sat behind the wheel for 2 full minutes, hands steady, breathing deliberately. Then I stepped out. Black coat, hair drawn back, no makeup, Daniel's letter in my left pocket, phone in my right. I knocked. My father answered in flannel shirt and slippers. His brows lifted. "Patricia, it's 8 in the morning. What do you—" "I need to speak to you all 3, before this proceeds any further." He studied my face. Whatever he read there prompted him to step aside. The house carried the scent of old coffee and stale toast. My mother stood at the kitchen counter in her robe, adding cream to a mug. Megan lounged on the sofa beneath a blanket, scrolling her phone. Both looked up as I entered. Donna offered an automatic smile. "Sweetheart, what a surprise." Megan did not smile. She observed me the way a cat watches a doorway. I settled in the armchair opposite the sofa, the same chair where I had watched Saturday cartoons as a child. Now I faced 3 people who had plotted to erase my legal autonomy. I want to hear it from you, all of it. What is the plan? What do you believe is best for me? Gerald sat across from me and squared his shoulders. This was his domain. Fine, he said. We've been attempting to explain. This concerns safeguarding your future, the estate, the properties. Your mother and I want only what's best. Donna nodded. Megan remained silent. I let him speak of responsibility, of family duty, of how financial matters were too burdensome for someone in my condition. When he concluded, I posed one question. When did you last see Dr. Feldman, Dad? His face locked mid-breath, mid-sentence, mid-deception. And at that moment, the doorbell rang. Gerald glanced at me. I held his gaze. The bell sounded again. He rose and opened the door. Detective Ray Campos stood on the porch in a dark blazer, badge visible at his belt. Behind him waited Daniel Kessler in a charcoal suit and Helen Marsh clutching a manila folder. Mr. Gerald Farper, I'm Detective Ray Campos, Norfolk County Police. May I enter? Gerald's mouth parted. No sound emerged. He stepped back. They entered the living room. Donna rose so abruptly from her stool that her coffee mug toppled from the counter. It shattered on the tile. No one moved to clean it. Megan shed the blanket and straightened. Her phone slipped between the cushions. Campos claimed the center of the room with quiet authority. I'm here concerning a petition for guardianship you filed with Norfolk Probate Court on behalf of your daughter, Patricia Sinclair. The date of patient examination field is blank. His appointment log contains no record of her. No chart, no file, no notes exist. Donna collapsed back onto the stool. Megan's jaw fell slack. Dr. Feldman was taken into custody at 7 a.m. this morning, Campos said. He has been cooperative. He allowed the word cooperative to linger in the air. Gerald's face lost all color, not gradually, but in an instant, as though a switch had been flipped. He understood exactly what cooperative implied. It meant Feldman had spoken. Gerald attempted a defense. Credit where it's due, he tried. Feldman, whatever he told you, he misunderstood. I asked only for a general assessment. I never instructed him to... Mr. Harper. Campos did not raise his voice. He had no need. Dr. Feldman states that you personally requested he sign a certificate declaring your daughter incapacitated without performing an examination. He states your wife, Donna Harper, supplied the precise diagnostic phrasing, and he states your daughter, Megan Harper, was aware of the plan and participated in it. Donna emitted a sound, half sob, half gasp, and clamped both hands over her mouth. Megan sprang to her feet. I didn't know about the doctor. This was Dad's idea. I had nothing to do with... Gerald whirled toward her. You contacted the real estate agent before we even had the documents. You phoned the property manager pretending to be her guardian because you told me... They turned on each other in less than 10 seconds, right there in front of a detective, an attorney, and me. I rose. The room stilled. Every eye turned to me. My father mid-accusation, my mother mid-sob, my sister mid-excuse. Campos, Kessler, Helen. I spoke softly, the way one does when every syllable must carry weight. I heard you. The night of Daniel's funeral. I stood outside that door, I pointed to the front entrance, 5 feet away, and listened. I heard Dad say Feldman would sign the certificate. I heard Megan say she had already called an agent about the Cape House. And I heard Mom say, I looked straight at my mother, Daniel dying is the best thing that's happened to this family. Donna's face collapsed. Patricia, I didn't mean... You said it, Mom, word for word, and I recorded it. No one moved, no one breathed. The shattered coffee mug remained on the kitchen floor. The silence was heavier than any words they had ever uttered. "I'm not here for revenge," I said. "I'm here to tell you I heard you, I know, and I choose not to forgive." Campos inclined his head toward the front door. 2 uniformed officers stepped inside. They had waited on the porch the entire time. "Gerald Harper," Campos's voice remained calm, procedural, "you are under arrest for fraud upon the court, forgery of medical documents, and conspiracy to misappropriate assets through fraudulent guardianship proceedings. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." My father stood motionless as the cuffs were fastened. He looked at me once, not in anger, but in something closer to bewilderment, as though he'd entered a room he believed he owned, only to find every lock altered. "Patricia, you can't do this to your father." I offered no reply. Donna was next. She did not resist. Her wrists were so slender the cuffs required adjustment. Tears traced twin paths down her cheeks. "Baby girl, I'm sorry. I was desperate. You have to understand." I met her gaze. My eyes were red, but dry. "Desperation does not grant you the right to declare me insane, Mom." She had no response. The officer escorted her toward the door. Campos turned to Megan. "Megan Harper, you are also under arrest for identity fraud, misrepresenting yourself as a court-appointed guardian to a financial entity, and attempted theft by deception." Megan's legs gave way. She clutched the sofa arm. Patty, please, I just—" One word. I did not need more. They were led out the front door and placed into separate vehicles. Across the street, Mrs. Kowalski stood frozen on her lawn, watering cans suspended mid-pour. Next door, the Guillen children peered through their screen door. A mail carrier slowed his truck, stared, then continued on. The living room stood empty now. Only me, Helen, Kessler, and the lingering scent of cold coffee mingled with broken porcelain. Helen rested her hand on my shoulder. She did not say anything. She did not need to. Helen drove. I sat in the passenger seat, hands folded in my lap, eyes on the road. We traveled 15 minutes in silence. No radio, just the hum of tires on pavement. Finally, I spoke. "I just sent my parents to jail." Helen answered without hesitation. "No, they sent themselves." I leaned my head against the window. The glass felt cool. "You know what keeps replaying in my mind? When I was 6, Dad taught me to ride a bike in that same driveway. He held the back of the seat and ran beside me until I could balance alone. He was laughing. I still remember his laugh." Helen glanced over. "Same hands," I said. "The same hands that held the seat are the ones that signed a petition to strip away my rights." She did not offer comforting words. She reached across once, squeezed my arm gently, then returned both hands to the wheel. We reached my apartment. She shut off the engine. "Patty, you don't have to be strong tonight. You just accomplished one of the most difficult things anyone can do. If you need to break, this is the night." I unbuckled my seatbelt and looked at her. "I've been breaking for 3 weeks. Tonight, I think I just want to sleep." She nodded. "I'll check on you in the morning." I walked inside. The apartment remained exactly as I had left it. Daniel's coffee mug in the drying rack, the power of attorney papers still on the table, the blue pen still tucked in the drawer. Everything unchanged, but I was no longer the same person who had lived here before. There was no returning to who I had been. 2 weeks later, Kessler called on a Tuesday with the complete update. Gerald Harper had been formally indicted on 3 counts: fraud upon the court, criminal forgery, and conspiracy to misappropriate assets through fraudulent guardianship proceedings. He posted $50,000 bail using the Quincy house as collateral, the same house already encumbered by 2 mortgages. Donna Harper faced 2 counts, conspiracy and Robert Voss, the attorney who drafted the power of attorney Gerald brought to my apartment, now faces investigation by the Massachusetts Board of Bar Overseers for his involvement in the scheme. "You're clear, Mrs. Sinclair," Kessler said. "Legally, financially, completely. Your husband ensured that, and you carried his work to its conclusion." I thanked him and ended the call. Then I sat at the kitchen table, gazing at the wall for a very long while, not thinking, not planning, just resting in a silence that, for the first time in weeks, carried no threat. The call arrived 3 weeks later, an unfamiliar number. I nearly let it go to voicemail. I wish I had. "Patricia?" My mother's voice, small, fractured, like porcelain mended one time too many. "I know I'm not allowed to call, I know, but please, just 30 seconds. I should have hung up. I didn't. "Your father is going to lose the house. The bank won't extend the loan. I don't know where I'll live, Patricia. I don't know what happens to me." I stood at the kitchen window, watching oak branches sway against a slate-gray sky. "Mom, you called from a blocked number. You're violating a court order right now." "I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. I was wrong. Your father was wrong. We were desperate." "You were desperate," I said. "So you chose to have me declared mentally unfit. You wanted a doctor to write a document stating I couldn't think for myself. Then Megan would have sold every asset Daniel left me, the apartments, the Cape House, everything he built, while I sat trapped in a guardianship, unable to decide anything about my own existence." I paused. "Did you ever consider what would have happened to me?" Nothing. Only the sound of her breathing. "I don't hate you, Mom, but I can't trust you, and I won't allow you close enough to make me doubt my own mind again." I heard her cry, quiet, restrained, the weeping of someone who knows the loss is final. "Don't call again." I hung up. Then I phoned Kessler to report the violation. I took no pleasure in it. I felt no surge of strength. I felt like someone who had amputated a vital part and was learning, step by careful step, to move forward without it. But I was moving. That was the point. Over the next few days, I dismantled the narrative Megan had constructed. Brief emails, plain language, no theatrics. "Hi, Angela. I wanted to reach out. I'm doing well. I have an attorney managing my affairs, and the situation Megan described was not accurate. Thank you for your concern. Patty." "Aunt Carol, thank you for checking in. I'm okay. Things have been hard, but I'm receiving the right kind of help. Love you." I sent 7 such messages. I offered no details about the arrests, no mention of the court case, no point-by-point rebuttal of Megan's story. I simply appeared, present, coherent, intact, and let that stand as the reply. Lisa called that same afternoon. "Patty, I knew the moment Megan opened her mouth it was nonsense. I'm glad you're all right." Aunt Carol phoned the next morning. "Sweetheart, I never believed that girl. She's been stretching the truth since she was 12. You know it. We all know it." Not everyone had been deceived. They simply hadn't known how to voice their doubts until I gave them permission. That Friday, I drove to Cape Cod alone. The house was smaller than I'd pictured. Pale blue shingles, white trim, a wraparound porch facing the Atlantic. The property manager had left the heat running. The floors gleamed. The ocean continued its timeless rhythm, advancing, retreating, indifferent to human affairs. I stood on the porch, Daniel's letter in my hand. The wind flattened my coat against my ribs. I read his words once more. "You are stronger than you think. You've always been strong. You just never had permission to believe it." This time, when I folded the letter, something had shifted. This time, I believed him. 6 months later, I lived in the Cape House full-time. The transition was quiet. I packed the Boston apartment over 2 weekends, hired a small moving crew, and closed the door on Elm Terrace without a backward glance. Daniel's coffee mug came along. So did the fireproof box.
the power of attorney papers met a shredder. I enrolled in a financial literacy course, an online certificate program through a community college in Hyannis. 12 weeks, covering balance sheets, tax filings, property management fundamentals, skills Daniel once managed, skills I now claimed for myself. Kessler connected me with a trustworthy property management firm. They assumed responsibility for the 3 Boston apartments, tenant screening, maintenance, rent collection. I reviewed the monthly reports, I asked questions, I understood the answers. For the first time in my adult life, I knew precisely where my money resided and how it moved. In March, I accepted a part-time role at Second Shore, a nonprofit in Falmouth that assists young widows rebuilding after profound loss. I didn't need the income, I needed the meaning. I understood what it felt like to lose everything in days and find no one standing behind you. Helen visited monthly. We sat on the porch with wine, watching waves catch gold at sunset. She never once said, "I told you so." She simply arrived. That's what the good ones do. Sentencing arrived in April. Gerald received 18 months in federal custody. Donna received 12 months of probation and 200 hours of community service. Megan received 6 months in county jail, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. I did not attend the hearing. I needed nothing more from that courtroom. The ocean spoke louder and carried wiser words. I do not speak with my father. I do not speak with my mother. I do not speak with Megan. That is not rage. It is structure. I erected a wall where a door once stood, and I have no interest in retrieving the plans to undismantle it. Gerald sent a letter from the federal facility in Devons. I recognized his handwriting, the same tight, slanted script he once used on birthday cards. I held the envelope for perhaps 10 seconds. Then I wrote "Return to Sender" across the front and placed it in the mailbox. Megan attempted contact through Lisa, a voicemail. "Tell Patty I'm sorry. Tell her I'll do anything." Lisa forwarded it. I listened once, then deleted it. Not out of cruelty, out of clarity. Keeping it would leave a thread, and threads invite pulling.
He was right, but I would add one essential truth. I no longer require permission, not from him, not from them, not from anyone. This morning I rose at 6, brewed coffee, and stepped onto the porch. The ocean moved as it always has, yesterday, the day before, a century ago, advancing, retreating, never seeking approval. No one stood at my door demanding a signature. No voice on the phone declared me incapable. No whispers drifted from the next room, plotting to claim what is mine while I still stood graveside in black. Daniel left me 4 walls and a roof, 3 apartments, and a house beside the sea. But the true inheritance, one no forged certificate or fraudulent petition could ever seize, was the certainty that I deserve safety, that I am sufficient, that the quiet inner voice insisting "you can do this" speaks the truth. If you are listening and find yourself in circumstances like mine, if someone close insists you are not intelligent enough, not resilient enough, not steady enough to direct your own life, hear me clearly. That is the vocabulary of control, not of fact. The most powerful retribution is not incarceration. It is constructing a life where those who sought to dismantle you hold no remaining influence, not over your finances, not over your thoughts, not over the simple ritual of morning coffee on a porch that is yours alone. I share this story not to preach a moral, but because on that Quincy porch, overhearing my family orchestrate my undoing, I longed for someone to have told me a tale like this beforehand. I would have known I was not unhinged. I would have known I had every right to resist. That is my account. If it reached you, please subscribe, not for my sake, but so you won't miss what comes next. These narratives matter, and this community grasps exactly why. If you know someone who needs these words, a friend, a sister, anyone being convinced they fall short, send them this video. And if you crave another story of someone who stood firm when every expectation was collapse, follow the link in the description. I'll see you there.